Good evening. Today, the conflict between Ukraine and Russia has taken yet another dramatic turn, as reports confirm that Ukrainian drones have struck one of Moscow's most iconic landmarks, the Moscow Federation Tower, a building valued at nearly $2 billion and a centerpiece of Russia's financial district. The incident not only raises serious questions about Moscow's air defenses, but also highlights the evolving nature of modern warfare, where drones are no longer confined to the battlefield, but are now instruments of deep strategic messaging. The strike on the Federation Tower is more than just an attack on bricks and steel, it is an attack on perception. For years, Moscow has presented itself as untouchable, shielded by some of the most sophisticated defense systems in the world. Yet, this event demonstrates that even the heart of Russia's capital can be reached by low-cost, remotely piloted aircraft operated by Ukraine. This symbolic victory serves as a morale boost for Ukrainians while simultaneously shaking Russian confidence. From an educational perspective, this incident provides key insights into the role of technology in modern conflicts. Drones are affordable, adaptable, and capable of bypassing traditional defense systems. Unlike expensive fighter jets or missiles, drones allow weaker powers to challenge stronger militaries by exploiting gaps in defense. This is a classic case of asymmetric warfare where innovation and persistence can rival sheer strength. But the implications go deeper. Beyond the battlefield, such attacks can disrupt civilian life, damage economic stability, and force nations to divert massive resources toward defense. For Russia, defending its capital against swarms of drones is not only costly but psychologically taxing. It signals to its citizens that the war they thought was distant has reached their very doorstep. Internationally, this event also raises new debates about security in the era of drones. If Moscow's financial hub can be targeted, what does that mean for other major capitals and financial centers worldwide? How should governments adapt their infrastructure, cybersecurity, and defense strategies to meet this growing threat? These are pressing questions not only for Russia but for every modern state. In conclusion, the strike on Moscow's Federation Tower is not simply another event in the war. It is a powerful lesson in the changing face of global conflict. It demonstrates that technology, determination, and strategy can shift the balance of power in ways that once seemed impossible. For Ukraine, it is a message of resilience. For Russia, it is a reminder of vulnerability. And for the world, it is a wake-up call that the era of drone warfare is not coming, it is already here. The escalation of drone warfare in the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia marks a significant turning point in the history of modern combat. What began as small, experimental uses of unmanned aerial vehicles has now evolved into a critical element of the battlefield, changing strategies, outcomes, and even the psychology of war. The recent Ukrainian drone strike on Moscow's Federation Tower is a prime example of how this technology is no longer restricted to military zones, but is now being used to penetrate deep into the political and economic heart of an adversary. The event demonstrates that drones have become not only tactical weapons, but also strategic instruments capable of altering national security priorities and shifting global perceptions. One of the key reasons drone warfare is escalating so rapidly lies in accessibility. Unlike fighter jets or advanced missile systems that require enormous budgets, drones can be produced or modified at relatively low cost. Ukraine has taken advantage of this fact, using both domestically developed systems and modified commercial drones to challenge one of the world's most heavily defended nations. The ability to launch long-range strikes with such cost-effective tools has introduced a new balance of power. While Russia invests billions into layered air defense systems like the S-400, a single low-cost drone has managed to breach these defenses and strike symbolic structures, exposing weaknesses that traditional warfare may not have revealed. This escalation is not merely about the technology itself, but also about strategy. Drone warfare allows Ukraine to project power far beyond its borders, bringing the conflict directly to Russia's capital. It forces Russia to recognize that distance no longer guarantees safety. in traditional wars, capitals and financial centers often remained untouched unless a conflict reached total war status. Now, drones blur that boundary, enabling smaller states to bypass conventional military hierarchies and inflict psychological and material damage on much larger opponents. This trend suggests that future wars will not necessarily be decided by tank brigades or naval fleets, but by swarms of unmanned aircraft capable of overwhelming defenses. Furthermore, the escalation of drone warfare reveals an important shift in the nature of deterrence. Historically, deterrence relied on large, visible arsenals, nuclear stockpiles, battleships, or missile systems. Today, deterrence may come in the form of uncertainty, the fear that an adversary could deploy drones at any time, striking unexpected locations and undermining a sense of security. Russia, which once projected its capital as invulnerable, now faces the reality that repeated drone strikes can occur and that no air defense system can provide absolute protection. This undermines confidence internally while emboldening Ukraine and its supporters externally. The educational lesson here is that drone warfare is not simply a temporary phase of this conflict. It represents the future of combat. Low cost, high impact, and widely accessible, drones are rewriting the rulebook of war. They empower nations and even non-state actors to challenge superpowers. They force militaries to rethink defense spending, infrastructure protection, and strategic doctrine. And as the Ukrainian strike on Moscow's Federation Tower shows, they have the power to alter not only battlefields, but the course of international politics. The strike on the Moscow Federation Tower carries a weight of symbolism that far exceeds the physical damage caused by a drone. This towering structure, standing in the heart of Moscow's financial district, is not just another skyscraper. It is a representation of Russia's modern identity, a showcase of wealth, ambition, and stability. By reaching such a landmark, Ukraine has delivered a message that resonates on multiple levels, that no symbol of power, no matter how tall or secure, is beyond the reach of determination and innovation. The act was not about destroying a building, it was about undermining a narrative. For years, Moscow projected the image of an untouchable capital, shielded by the best defense systems in the world. The moment drones were able to breach that shield and hit one of Russia's most prized symbols, that image was cracked for all to see. This strike also highlights the psychological dimension of modern warfare. When citizens witness an attack on a building that defines the skyline of their capital, the effect is not limited to material loss. It shakes confidence, breeds anxiety, and makes people question the government's ability to provide security. For Russians who believed the war was distant, confined to the battlefields of Ukraine, the strike served as a wake-up call. It brought the conflict into their daily lives, reminding them that even their most protected spaces are vulnerable. This psychological impact is as important as any tactical victory, because wars are not fought solely with weapons. They are also fought with perception and morale. From Ukraine's perspective, targeting such a symbol was a carefully calculated move. Instead of aiming solely at military installations, striking a landmark like the Federation Tower draws global attention. It tells the world that Ukraine is capable of reaching deep into Russian territory, and that it will use this ability not only for battlefield advantage, but for strategic messaging. It demonstrates resilience, ingenuity, and the ability to outmaneuver a stronger opponent. For international audiences, particularly those skeptical about Ukraine's capacity to challenge Russia, this strike serves as proof that determination and resourcefulness can have outsized effects. On the global stage, the symbolism of this strike extends beyond Russia and Ukraine. It raises questions about how secure other nations really are. If one of the most heavily defended capitals in the world can be penetrated by drones, then what does that mean for other global financial hubs? The attack is a reminder that in the age of unmanned warfare, prestige and wealth do not guarantee safety. Tall towers, iconic skylines, and national symbols can become targets, not because of their military value, but because of the messages they carry. Ultimately, the strike on the Federation Tower teaches us that in modern warfare, symbolism is often as powerful as physical destruction. A cracked window in a skyscraper may matter less in material terms than the shattered perception of invulnerability it represents. Ukraine has understood this, using drones not only as weapons but as tools of psychological and strategic communication. And in doing so, it has shown the world that war today is as much about shaping narratives as it is about destroying targets. The lessons from the Ukrainian drone strike on the Moscow Federation Tower extend far beyond the immediate event, offering insight into the technological and strategic shifts defining modern warfare. Drones represent a new class of weaponry that is transforming how conflicts are fought, revealing that future battles will be defined not only by raw firepower, but by adaptability, innovation, and precision. The Federation Tower incident demonstrates that advanced nations with strong militaries are not invulnerable to smaller, more resourceful opponents who use emerging technologies creatively. One of the central technological lessons is the efficiency of drones compared to traditional weapons. A drone, often built or modified at a fraction of the cost of a missile or fighter jet, can achieve an impact that forces an adversary to spend disproportionately more on defense. In the case of Moscow, defending skyscrapers and financial centers from drones requires expensive radar systems surfaced, where missiles and constant monitoring. This dynamic creates what military analysts call a cost asymmetry, where the attacker spends little to cause disruption while the defender spends vast amounts to guard against it. This imbalance changes how nations must think about allocating defense budgets, because traditional systems designed for large-scale attacks are being challenged by swarms of small, hard-to-detect aerial vehicles. Another lesson is the flexibility of drones. Unlike conventional weapons with fixed designs, drones can be adapted rapidly to meet battlefield needs. They can carry small explosives, conduct surveillance, or act as decoys to expose defense weaknesses. Ukraine has made extensive use of this adaptability, customizing drones to fly longer distances, evade radar detection, and strike with precision in urban environments. This adaptability challenges the assumption that military superiority alone guarantees security. The ability to innovate quickly and deploy low-cost, flexible systems can level the playing field in surprising ways. Strategically, the use of drones introduces a new dimension of unpredictability. Traditional military strategy often relied on large, predictable troop movements and heavily planned operations. Drones, however, allow for sudden, precise strikes with little warning. They create an environment of constant tension where defenders must always be alert for attacks that could come at any moment from any direction. This unpredictability is not just a tactical advantage, it is a psychological one. For Russia, the realization that drones can penetrate defenses and strike at the heart of its capital erodes the sense of safety that citizens and leaders once assumed. The Federation Tower strike also highlights the importance of information warfare. Each drone strike is not just a physical act, but also a message amplified through media and international discourse. When a skyscraper in Moscow is hit, the images spread rapidly around the world, shaping narratives of vulnerability and resilience. This shows that modern technology intertwines with strategy not only on the battlefield but also in the global information space, where perception can be as decisive as material damage. Taken together, the lessons of this event emphasize that the age of drone warfare is redefining military doctrine. Nations can no longer rely solely on expensive, traditional defense systems. They must adapt to a world where smaller, smarter, and more flexible technologies can have outsized impact. For Ukraine, this approach has created opportunities to challenge a larger adversary. For the rest of the world, it is a wake-up call to rethink how security, technology, and strategy must evolve in the face of rapidly advancing unmanned systems. The geopolitical and security implications of the Ukrainian drone strike on Moscow's Federation Tower reach far beyond the immediate battlefield. This single event reshapes how Russia perceives its own vulnerability, how its citizens experience the war, and how the international community understands the risks of escalation in modern conflict. Striking at the heart of Moscow, in a building symbolic of wealth and prestige, transforms the conflict from a distant regional war into a confrontation that visibly touches Russia's core. The impact of this goes beyond physical damage, forcing Russia to reconsider both its defensive strategies and its political messaging. For Russia, the implications are particularly severe. The country has long portrayed itself as shielded by some of the most advanced air defense systems in the world, projecting an image of strength and impenetrability. The successful strike on such a high-profile target undermines that narrative. It suggests to the Russian public that the government cannot fully protect them, even in the most heavily guarded parts of the capital. This erodes confidence in leadership and weakens the perception of security that is crucial for maintaining morale during wartime. When citizens begin to feel that the conflict is no longer far away but is instead entering their neighborhoods and financial centers, pressure on political leaders inevitably increases. From a broader geopolitical perspective, the attack forces the world to reassess the nature of modern threats. Capitals, economic districts, and critical infrastructure are now vulnerable in ways that traditional warfare did not fully anticipate. Governments in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia are watching this conflict closely, recognizing that their own financial hubs and strategic landmarks could be targeted by similar tactics. The lesson is that geography no longer provides the protection it once did. A nation does not need to share a border to feel the reach of drones. This realization is prompting discussions worldwide about how to defend airspace, protect civilian infrastructure, and balance national security with the freedoms of modern urban life. The strike also complicates international diplomacy. Russia may interpret such attacks as provocations that justify stronger military responses, raising the risk of escalation. At the same time, Ukraine's ability to reach deep into Russian territory strengthens its negotiating position, showing both its resilience and its capacity to challenge Moscow directly. This dual dynamic, escalation on one side, bargaining power on the other, illustrates the delicate balance of modern conflicts, where every technological advance can shift political leverage. Allies of both sides must carefully weigh their responses, knowing that each drone strike reverberates far beyond the immediate destruction. There is also an important economic dimension to these implications. Financial centers like the Federation Tower symbolize stability and prosperity. When they are attacked, even symbolically, they send ripples through markets and investment climates. For Russia, this raises questions about long-term economic confidence and its ability to maintain business as usual while under constant threat. For other nations, it highlights the vulnerability of global financial networks, where the destruction of symbolic or strategic infrastructure could trigger economic consequences that stretch well beyond the battlefield. Ultimately, the geopolitical and security implications of this strike serve as a warning to the world. Warfare has entered an era where borders and distance offer no guarantees of safety. States must adapt not only their defenses but also their political strategies, recognizing that the power of drones lies as much in their psychological and symbolic impact as in their destructive capacity. For Russia, the strike is a stark reminder of its vulnerability. For Ukraine, it is proof of its ability to influence the conflict far beyond the front lines. And for the world, it is an urgent call to prepare for a future where security is constantly tested in new and unpredictable ways.